Hello everyone. In this video we want to continue talking about the forms of energy. We have studied the mechanical energy, which is the sum of potential and kinetic energy at the same time, and we talked about the sound energy, and we said it's a form of kinetic energy. Electromagnetic energy, which is also a form of kinetic energy. Also we studied electrical energy, also it's a form of kinetic energy. Now we want to talk about other forms of energy, which is what? Chemical energy. We already talked about the chemical energy before. We said it's a form of potential energy, okay? And we have mentioned the amount of chemical energy in a molecule depends on the kind of atoms and their arrangement. What does that mean? If you remember, when we talked about a glucose molecule, we said a glucose, we give an example, which is what? A glucose, which is C6H12O6. Let's write the numbers. C6H12O6. And these atoms, the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, they have bonds. They are linked together in bonds, and they store energy between these bonds. This energy is called what? Chemical energy. The amount of chemical energy in a molecule. This is a molecule. What is a molecule? You have here like atoms. They are linked together. They have bond between them. The amount of energy they have depends on the kind of atom. It depends which type of atom. Here we have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. For example, if you're talking about another, let's talk about carbon dioxide, which is CO2, for example. Here you have carbon and oxygen. How can I know which one it has more energy, which one less energy? It depends on the type of atoms they are making up this molecule. So it depends on the kind of atoms and their arrangement and how they are arranged together. During a chemical change, bonds between these atoms break and new bonds form. And for example, for a glucose, when it reacts with oxygen, the oxygen will release the energy that is stored inside the glucose, because the bonds between oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon will be broken like this. When you break these bonds, the energy will be released, okay? And a new bonds will be formed when you form carbon dioxide. There is a new bonds between carbon and oxygen, and water, H2O, between hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, so here, for example, the food that we eat, for example, it has what? A chemical potential energy. The batteries, for example, here, or let's talk about, before we talk about the batteries, for the food, for example, we have this glucose. It has energy. Which type of energy? Chemical potential energy, if you're talking about the food. If you're talking about the battery, let's go back to this one here, to this example. Okay, for example, this battery here, before you turn it on, I'll close it. Okay, this battery, it has inside it what? Chemicals. So which type of energy it has inside it? It has a chemical potential energy. Okay, and the matches are sources of chemical energy also. So these are examples. I'm going to look at this video, listen carefully to this video, and write notes while you are watching.
Potential energy is stored in the bonds among atoms. This potential energy is known as chemical energy. The energy is released when the bonds are broken. Can you think of a source of chemical energy that you use every day? It's food. Your body uses the chemical energy in food for all of its functions.
Okay, so this is about what? Chemical energy. Let's move to talk about another, or here, before, you have to focus on this one. I have mentioned that before. The amount of chemical energy in a molecule depends on the kinds of atom and their arrangement, these two. Okay, let's continue. We want to move to other type of energy, or another form of energy. This form, which is what? The thermal energy. What is the thermal energy of an object? Is the kinetic energy of its particles. What does that mean? If you remember, we last semester we took the liquid, gas, and solid. If you remember, we talked about the solid. The particles, they can vibrate only in their place because the particles, they are close together and they have less energy. Okay, when we talked about liquid, they have more energy, so they can move past each other. So here they have more energy than what? Than solid. Okay, if you're talking about gas, the gas particles, they can move in all direction. Here, if you're talking about the thermal energy, here you're talking about the energy of, or the kinetic energy these particles have. If you're talking about solid, you're talking about liquid, you're talking about the gas. Okay, so the faster the molecule in an object move, and the more particles the object has, the more thermal energy. What are the factors that affect the thermal energy? We have two factors. The first factor, the faster the molecule in an object move, and the more particles. If they have more particles the object has, the more thermal energy they have. The faster molecule in the object, so 1, as the objects are moving more, and if they are more particles, number of particles also affect this one. This is number 2. So you have to put in your mind now, heat is the energy transferred. You have to look at this one, and we will discuss it more in more details in the next lesson. Heat is the energy transferred from an object at a higher temperature to an object at lower temperature. To give you example, for example, if you put your hand on the table is cold, and your hand is warm, for example. Just put your table on the hand on the table. The energy will be transferred from your hand to what? To the table, from higher temperature from your body to lower temperature, which is what? The table. So this is the heat. This is the transferring of energy from object at higher temperature to an object at lower temperature. Okay, sorry for this. So this is about what the thermal energy of an object is. The kinetic energy of its particles. Particles move faster at higher temperature than at lower temperature. As if you increase the temperature for an object, these particles start to gain energy and start to move more, right? The faster the molecules in an object move, the more thermal energy the object has. Also, the more particles an object has, the more thermal energy it has. So this is about what? This is about the thermal energy. Listen to this video and write notes.
An object's atoms are constantly moving, which means they have kinetic energy. The kinetic energy of the atoms in an object is known as thermal energy. You can feel thermal energy as heat, as from a bonfire or hot pan. The higher the temperature of an object, the more thermal energy it has.
Okay, let's move now to talk about the last form of energy, that we want to discuss together, which is the nuclear energy. What is the nuclear energy? To understand this one, you have to know that all atoms, they have a nucleus. So the nucleus of an atom is the source of a nuclear energy. And if you're talking about atoms, you're talking about carbon, you're talking about hydrogen, they have a nucleus. Okay, so the nucleus of the atom is the source of a nuclear energy. Okay, how it's formed, what is it exactly? When an atom's a nucleus, for example, this is a nucleus of an atom, okay? If this nucleus breaks apart, or if the nucleus combine with another nucleus from other atom, there is an energy will be released. So when the nuclei of two small atoms join together, energy is released. Okay, what's that? Where can we find like this? For example, in the sun, the hydrogen nucleus combine with another hydrogen nucleus. So hydrogen with hydrogen, when they combine together, they will make energy. They will combine together. They will form first another atom, which is helium. It's called helium. Okay, and due to this combination, there is an energy will be released. It's called what? A nuclear energy. Okay, so this is about what the nuclear energy. Look at this video, listen carefully, and write notes while you are watching.
The sun is the power source for life on Earth. The sun's energy comes from nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is released when an atom's nucleus is split or when nuclei are combined together.
Okay, so again, for the sun, as she mentioned, for the sun here, it has like hydrogen. Hydrogen will, nucleus will combine with another hydrogen nucleus. They combine together and they will release energy to make, and they will form first helium, and they will release a huge amount of energy. This energy is called what? A nuclear energy. Okay, so this is about what the nuclear energy. I want you to go now to your book, page 106. On page 106, there is a question 12. We want to discuss it together. This question here, why is the chemical energy or why is the chemical energy of a battery potential energy and not kinetic energy? Why it's not kinetic? We call the chemical energy inside the battery, we call it potential. Actually here the energy in the chemicals is stored energy, so the battery must be placed into a completed electrical circuit for the energy to create an electric current. Here before, at the beginning, if you look at this one, at the beginning, nothing here is moving, only the chemicals inside the battery is stored inside the battery. Once you close the circuit, the energy here of chemical energy, it will start to push the electrons inside the wire and make the electric current. Okay, so I'm going to write the answer, copy the answer in your notebook. So copy the answer for question 12. Till now we have studied the forms of energy and the meaning of each one of them. If you still have a question about any of these forms of energy, you can send me your question. Thank you for listening.